Thank you for coming tonight, and thanks for letting me share my family's experience with cystic fibrosis. Hope is defined by Webster as a desire of some good, accompanied with at least a slight expectation of obtaining it, or a belief that it is obtainable. You might think that hope is pretty much the same as a wish. I wish I was taller. Realistically, there's no hope for that unless a pair of really high heels counts. The difference between a wish and a hope is that it's unlikely for a wish to come true, while hope means things are possible. My son Justin was born in Appleton late on Christmas Eve, 1997. It was obvious to the doctors that something was wrong. Like a lot of parents of a child with CF, there was no record of the disease in either of our families. Many people think that since it's not in their family history, it won't happen to them. Guess what? It might. CF is caused by a recessive gene, which means both parents have to carry the gene in order for there to be a chance for the baby to have CF. The reason it's often not in anyone's family tree is that 80, 90 years ago, kids with CF didn't live long enough to be diagnosed. If your ancestors have a baby recorded as failure to thrive that they lost, there's a good chance CF is in your family history. 1 in 25 people is a carrier of the CF gene. Look around you. In this room tonight, 13 of you carry the CF gene and don't even know it. If your partner is also a carrier, and again, they may not be aware of it, every pregnancy is a roll of the dice with a 25% chance of having a baby with CF. 25%. There are thousands of mutations of the CF gene, which makes it even harder to diagnose. When Justin was born, the life expectancy of a baby with CF was about 25. Compared to dying within the first few weeks, that's a great improvement. But as new parents who are already older than 25, hearing that was devastating. How can you comprehend that your baby is not predicted to live as long as you already have? Justin's battle with CF officially began Christmas morning when he received a quick ride from Appleton to Children's Hospital in Milwaukee, not in Santa's sleigh, but in an ambulance. I'm pretty sure that's where his passion for vehicles was born. The doctor said they won't do surgery on Christmas Day unless it's an emergency. So I stayed in the hospital in Appleton while my husband Troy drove down to be with Justin. Children's ran one test and called in the surgical team. Justin had a life-threatening blockage in his intestines. Troy still struggles every December 25th, remembering the wait for our baby, who was less than a day old, to get out of surgery, and Justin's horrible first Christmas when it was just the two of them in the NICU. 44 days, 2 wonderful nurses, 3 surgeries, 2 blockages, and over 10 feet of intestines later, we finally brought Justin home. We were hopeful that strict compliance with every CF rule and regulation would keep Justin healthy. Whatever the pulmonologist told us to do, we did. Dr. Biller, wherever you are, we did. Wash his toothbrush with soap every time you use it? You bet. Stay away from any wet leaves or open sandboxes? Of course. Make sure every dish is completely dry before it goes in the cupboard, and wash your fruits and vegetables with soap? No problem. We kept our hope strong. But no matter how careful and how vigilant you are, CF is a relentless, cruel disease. CF causes mucus to become thick and sticky, like syrup or gum. Several medications are given through a nebulizer 2 or 3 times a day, and chest PT is done at least twice a day to try and break up the mucus. You've probably heard how the mucus destroys the lungs, diminishing pulmonary function until the body just can't fight to breathe anymore. What you may not know is every other cell of the body is also affected. The mucus clogs the pancreas, so digestive enzymes can't get out. Thus, most CF patients can't eat without taking replacement pills. These enzymes can take up to 15 a day or 15 at a time depending on what they're eating. So this is what Justin's daily dose of drugs is. Most of those are his enzymes. There's no such thing as an unplanned sleepover. Sometimes Justin's cousins would decide to stay overnight after a get-together, and Justin often couldn't go because we didn't have enough medication or have his nebulizer or any of his medications that we needed for an overnight stay. There's no such thing as suddenly going through the drive-thru. If you don't have enough pills with you to eat, you don't eat. As you might expect, poor digestion of nutrients makes it hard for patients to gain weight. Getting the enzyme dosage right is tricky. Stomach cramps, diarrhea, and constipation are the main symptoms of taking the wrong amount. Often patients end up in the hospital with a blockage in their intestines. Luckily, Justin has only had one blockage since the time he was born. He was able to avoid surgery last time because the blockage was cleared by ingesting 3 gallons of Go Lightly via an NG tube, which goes down your nose into your stomach. For the record, Justin insists that Go Lightly is not properly named. He also states that while the post-blockage meal is fantastic, it is not worth the procedure. Let's not even discuss going back to school 2 weeks after summer break starts to finish the finals you missed while you were in the hospital. As CF disrupts the chloride passage in the cells, patients lose salt quickly. In hot weather, you can often see salt crystals on their skin. This leads to dehydration, which also is a big problem for Justin. In high heat or humidity, Justin gets a migraine-like headache and has to sleep it off, usually for 14 or more hours. It has made for some challenging visits to my family in Phoenix. We have added salt in everything from baby bottles to Gatorade to help keep him properly salted. When he was 5, the school accidentally gave Justin 3 of someone else's pills. Cue another quick ride to the hospital, this time to drink charcoal. It was gross, and I would not have gotten through it. A nurse told little 5-year-old Justin they'd have to pump his stomach if he didn't drink it. So we negotiated a trip to see the ambulance if he drank it all. Remember the fascination with vehicles? He drank it. Throughout Justin's life, we have participated in CF fundraisers. We knew the only way to beat CF was to fund research. Every dollar raised was one we didn't have before. I have hope that one of those dollars will be the magic one to find a cure. We also ask God for a cure to CF every time we say our prayers. It turns out God wasn't the only one listening. Shortly after he turned 3, Justin called me downstairs where he was playing with his Lincoln Logs. He told me he had something to show me. When I looked, I saw that he had spelled the letters QCF out of his Lincoln Logs. Look, he said. I made a Q for CF, just like in my prayers. As Justin got older, the life expectancy kept increasing. As more money was raised through events like fishing tournaments, golf tournaments, and tonight's wine opener, more treatments and drugs were introduced. Every one of these nudged that number a little bit higher. Still, there were low spots. We never told Justin that CF shortens lives. That's the kind of news that can destroy the hope in a child. However, when Justin was 8, it was announced at a fundraising walk that the life expectancy had gone up to 30 years. Everyone was celebrating. However, when we got home, Justin asked if he was going to die when he turned 30. While he should have been playing with Hot Wheels and riding his scooter with his friends, my son was contemplating his own morality. Trust me, nothing can prepare you for that conversation. I told Justin that life expectancy takes into account people who don't have access to all the treatments that we do, and the number is getting higher all the time. We told him he was always chasing that life expectancy number and would never catch it, and would live a long and wonderful life. Yet when he turned 10, Justin said, "Now I only have 20 more years to live." That was the most heartbreaking thing I had ever heard until 2 years later I overheard him talking to his girlfriend when he was 12. He told her, I know, right? He told her, I would like to be with you forever, but my forever won't be as long as yours. Even as he grew excited to be finally taller than his dietitian, who's 5 foot tall, and his lungs remained fairly clear, he was still counting down the years of his life. Justin has always fought back against CF. He started playing the trombone in 5th grade. I wanted him to play the drums because I was worried he wouldn't be able to play the trombone as his lungs deteriorated. He insisted on the trombone and still plays it today. He was first chair in high school, which is a big accomplishment even for somebody with healthy lungs. Exercise is even more crucial for people with CF than it is for you and me. It helps keep their lungs healthy. Combined with daily chest PT, it's an important part of the CF care plan. Patients are encouraged to exercise as much as their health will allow them to. Justin has played basketball since he was in 3rd grade. It's his favorite sport. I can't count the number of games of pig and horse that we have played. Once I even won. I'd like to remind him about that. There's still nothing Justin would rather do than shoot hoops with his brother. Justin also ran cross country and track in high school. It wasn't always pretty, but he never gave up, no matter how far behind his teammates he was. One of his coaches said, Justin may not have been the first one to cross the finish line, but he was the first one with CF. Until 2012, CF drugs just treated the symptoms: sticky mucus, malabsorption, and reduced lung function. The first drug to target the underlying cause of CF, the poor flow of salt and water across cell membranes, only worked for certain genetic mutations. These constituted about 4% of the CF population. Unfortunately, Justin was not part of that 4%. When Justin was 18, a new drug called Orkambi was sanctioned by the FDA. It was the second drug to target the cause of CF and approved for patients with the most common gene mutation, which is about 80% of the population. Orkambi brought hope in capital letters to a lot of people. Justin was approved to start Orkambi as soon as it was available. However, some of our friends with CF did not qualify, and their health continued to deteriorate. Justin graduated from high school and went off to college. He also developed survivor's guilt, feeling guilty for being relatively healthy compared to some of his friends with CF. Justin is now 22 years old. He will graduate from UW Green Bay in May with a bachelor's of marketing. I hope he finds a job. Is anyone hiring? See me later to set up an interview. We are lucky that Justin's lungs are still pretty good. His gut, not so much. Still, because it's easier to live with gut issues than bad lungs, we are hopeful that Justin will be with us for much longer than his life expectancy predicted when he was born. Our insurance has just given the okay for Justin to start the newest drug that treats the underlying cause of CF. Approved in November, it's called Trikafta, and it combines 3 different drugs. This formulation brought hope to 90% of patients in capital letters with flashing lights and confetti. 90% of patients. Trikafta was fast-tracked to approval by the FDA because of the amazing results of the clinical trials. Lung function increased by almost 14% compared to a placebo. That makes a big difference to a lot of people. Trikafta also improves sweat chloride and weight gain. I believe Trikafta has finally opened the door to a cure for CF. Do you know how that happened? You guys made it happen. Research was funded by donors like you all at events like this one. Without you, we would not have this hope. Neither would our children. But Trikafta is not a cure. We aren't finished yet. We need to find treatments for 100% of CF patients. We cannot leave that last 10% behind. They all have names, faces, families, dreams, and hopes. We need your help to help them. Whether you bid on the silent auction items, participate in the live auctions, or give through our Bid for a Cure, please remember that 10% tonight. We can't stop working until we have an actual cure for all CF patients. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you for giving us hope for that cure for CF.